beyond the Ghostlight.
Hey! Happy New Year, everybody! Happy New Year!
Well done. I salute everyone. The odds were ever in our favor, I guess.
Seriously, Ghostlight is what? Say what? Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad 2020 is over. I think we all are. I think we're all excited to be looking at 2021. But I have seen this TikTok floating around that said we're all gonna walk into 2021 and we ain't gonna touch nothing. We're gonna be real quiet. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna see what's gonna happen. I think that's a good way to approach.
I think I like that a lot. Actually, I don't want to jinx anything.
There are many sleeping bears around us, and we have all these sticks, but we really don't want to use them.
Right? Exactly. Well, hey everybody, good to see you back. Hello, friends and humans. We see some mutants and mortals in the chat section. Hello, all, and welcome back. It's I hope you guys had a really wonderful holiday, and hopefully some rest in between. So yeah, how about you guys? How are we doing?
I know, doing pretty well. You mentioned some rest. I don't know if I can call it rest. I'm not doing anything, and yet I've never been so exhausted. So it's great, you know. I think some people might be able to relate with that. But I don't know, Nick. You can tell me how you feel about this. But I've been really, really grateful to have the IBIS to keep me and focused. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really nice to have. Ever since we started this thing, there have been many things that went on in the last, the year. But it was nice to have the IBIS to look at, kind of like Will o' the Wisp, like leading us along the snaking pathway in the woods. It was nice to have that to look upon.
I like that event. It's fun. Yeah, we've got more things coming, everybody. New year, new us, new resolution. We don't really do resolutions. We work on new things and incorporating them into our practice. But there is some amazing stuff coming for 2021. Tori, want to throw a couple ideas of what maybe people can expect later this January?
So we are working on something. We're going to be workshopping a project based on stories from you guys. So we all know that a lot of us we work in the service industry, in that in that restaurant realm, if you will, servers and bartenders. I think we're all pretty darn familiar with that. And I think we're pretty darn familiar with the horror stories, if you will. You see what I did there? Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear about your stories from being in the industry. And we want to create a piece that really tells our stories, that really speaks true and honest to what goes on behind the scenes, if you will.
No, I love that. And I really appreciate that you mentioned, as artists, we're really used to working our gig industries, and, we work 2 or 3 jobs often to support this amazing and very wonderful thing that we all do called theater. And so I'm really excited to hear, the horror, the amazing moments in front of the house, the amazing moments in the back of the house when everyone's pulling together and making it work, and then the rest of the time, which I don't know about you, but it's been a crazy year for anybody in the service industry. And I think that that's a really cool project to, start this hype train moving in 2021.
Absolutely. So we're gonna be doing some collecting some stories, probably doing some roundtables, collecting those stories, creating something from those stories. I know most of my experience in kitchens has always been as a chef. So, I love the idea of incorporating both the front of house and the back of house because two worlds existing
At the same time.
exactly. And what could be more? What could be more horrifying than the two worlds existing?
Well, it sounds like a hell of a banger to start the season off with. And we will also be providing other amazing details about the rest of our season. It's crazy to consider that we actually have, a season coming up after all of last year, but it is here. And we've got some amazing virtual performances coming up for you guys that are going to be really spectacular. But we also are looking forward and looking to that bright day when we can all be in the same room again together. So I don't think we want to give too much away yet. But there's some exciting stuff coming along, new works, and some musical, perhaps. Poor musical,
Possibly, yes.
who knows? It's all very exciting.
No.
And also, we did hear back from you guys, and we will be starting our Fireside Fridays again as soon as it's safe to reconvene. We are all kind of quarantining right now again in our pods and have been. So we are at this point, we're feeling like it'll soon be at a place to start meeting around or inside our lovely fireplace again to bring tales and stories from our fireside to yours. So yeah, super excited to have that.
Yes, the borrower fireplace will return. We will be shrinking down again to sit on the hearth and tell stories. Eventually.
We'll get there, folks. It's coming. It's coming. And yes, Miss Bridget Gappa, we did say musical, and we did not stutter at all.
We are so excited about it. We're saving details, like we said, but definitely a possibility, definitely something to look forward to. Keep an ear to the ground. Check us out if you are watching on Facebook. Oh, actually, this is a perfect segue. Thank you, Bridget. Gentles and Germs, if you are watching us from Facebook, we have done a fabulous thing. We have got a website. shadowoftheibis.com is our website. And from this point forward, we're going to be transitioning all of our live productions to our website. So for those of you who are used to seeing us here on Facebook and have been with us since the beginning, we love you. Thank you so much. It's not going to be a super stark transition. We're not going to make you go, oh my God, what's going on? But we are going to switch it over piece by piece over to our website to give it a nice, juicy home. You know, that way you can tell your friends who don't have Facebook, hey, check out this cool website that's got these awesome shows. And they don't have to have Facebook. So
no, they don't. And then, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
And on our website, you can see reels of previous episodes of this show, Fireside Fridays, a highlight from We Closed. So, you can see our work. We're showing our working.
Hey, we have a home. It's great. It's shiny. And it's mostly formatted to your viewing pleasure. So let us know what you think. We have a lot of wonderful things in our catacombs, like Nick was referring to, the area where we should refer back to our amazing shows and our fabulous cast, our amazing guests. So check it out. There's some really cool stuff on there already and only more to add. Also starting to take some submissions for that show we mentioned earlier that we will be naming more details for. Again, give us your horror tales from working in the industry. We uninquiring minds are wanting to know.
Now, we have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Kathleen McClaine. Her talent is incredible. If you don't know about her, you better ask somebody. And she will be with us very shortly. She's actually a pretty busy lady. We're lucky. We're lucky to have her. And we are so excited to have her on to talk theater in 2021. So in the meantime, before she shows up, I'd like to start the conversation. Start the conversation with the Coven. And let me ask you guys, what do you think those first few post-plague performances, say that 3 times fast, are going to feel like?
I think it's going to be that one line that actually stood out from The Force Awakens. You know, where Han Solo looked around and said, "Chewie, we're home." It's gonna have a touch of that, because we're gonna walk into those theaters and it's going to be all of those old familiar things, but it's going to have that tinge of, wow, this is so strange because we've not been here so long.
Right.
And I know it's not been that long, and even if it doesn't happen until like after the first half of this year, it still won't be the longest time ever, but it's going to feel like that. And I think it's going to be a really interesting and slightly unnerving feeling to be doing theater in person again.
That's a great point. And excuse me, everybody, my teeth fell out, so just take care of that real quick.
Radiation poisoning, you're fine.
It's tough, man. And this moon, I don't know if you all were paying attention, but woo! Anyway, I think that's such a great point, Nick. I think it's gonna be like, and I think it's going to be wonderful. I hope that there's just those few first performances where people flub their lines, where it feels a little bit like the first time you're back together with an old romantic fling, and maybe the first time ends a little faster than you thought, and everybody's really fine with it and having a great time. I truly think that we're going to see people laughing, excited, joining together, just to be in the same room. And I think we might start seeing some theater in non-traditional spaces a little bit more than we have even. As people are trying to find ways to perform outside, to perform in spaces where maybe people can be separated a little bit more easily. I think that comfort is going to be important for people. So, you know, all jokes aside, I do think that there's just going to be this mad rush, kind of like you said, Nick, of coming home and remembering what we loved and were here for in the first place. But also, I really think we're going to see some new folks. I think we're going to see some people who haven't maybe sat in a theater house before, or maybe have seen 1 or 2 shows with their coworkers or something, but really given it a shot. So that's just my 2 cents. Tori, what do you think?
You know, I totally agree. And I think I'm going to take it a little bit more meta. I think that what we're going to see is some of the best performances out of people we've ever seen in our lives. People who didn't know they could do things are going to impress and wow and awe us. And I cannot wait to see the kind of art that is going to come out of the people who have been stifled and stuck in these boxes and just creating for themselves, or creating in the ways that they can when their limitations are removed. Roba, I can't wait to see this art. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I think we're all ready to do something not in the house, obviously. So I think we're going to see a fabulous explosion of, you know, we're going to see some brandos pop out of this, man. You know, people have been working, doing their due diligence, spending this time, getting their portfolios shiny, you know. I think we're going to see some real Renaissance style art come out of this. So
I'm super excited. We're super excited. Speaking of excitement, it looks like we are about ready to bring on our very special honored guest, our very first guest of 2021. Welcome to the fabulous Kathleen McClaine.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
hey, Kay.
Hi, everybody. So real quick, before we even get started, I want to throw my 2 cents in about that last question. Post-plague, first of all, I thought that was put very well because that's exactly what we're in, a plague. But the last time we really endured something like this was 1918. 2 million people died, etc. And what followed behind that was the Roaring 20s. And I think we're about to have Roaring 20s 2.0. Some of the things that happened in the 1920s that really kind of rocked the entertainment world were things like the flapper. And I'm sure it had a whole lot to do with being separated and not being able to be seen with masks, etc., etc. But skirts got shorter, suits got a little bit more wild. That was the birth of the zoot suit and pocket chains and big wide brim hats, and we dressed for everything. We dressed for dinner. We dressed for cocktails. We dressed to travel. We dressed to go to the theater. We dressed to go out to dinner. I think a lot of that is going to be happening. Something that happened in the movie business, and again, it was still in its infancy during the 20s, but censorship went right out the window. It wasn't really all that important whether or not a female had a brassiere on or that you could see her nipples or even her whole breast to a sheer dress.
Yeah.
So the whole, Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction is going to go right out the window. I think there's going to be a lot of lasciviousness, let's call it that, simply because we've been forced to be away from each other. So I think new plays are going to come along, but I think they're going to be in the same kind of vein as the Greek comedies like Lysistrata. I think there's going to be a lot of bawdy comedy, and there's going to be a lot of intense sexuality. There's going to be a lot of personal contact, and it's not just going to be an evening at the theater. It's going to be an evening out with cocktails and friends, and then the theater, and then Katz's Deli afterwards, waiting for the reviews, fireside radio chats, so on and so forth. I think we're really going to come together, and live performance is going to get, I don't want to say an injection, but I want to say maybe a rebirth. People have taken live performers rather for granted for a long time because we have film and we have television, and now 2020 has pulled the veil back from even film and television, right? All of the things that go into the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert is a little bit different now that he's at home and his dog is barking in the next room and his wife is his executive producer. So a lot of the shine has come off of Hollywood. A lot of, especially since Hollywood is no longer part of the studio system post-plague this time around. Actors like me, old actors like me, miss the studio system because there was a degree of security in it. There was a degree of mandatory high quality production and performance. There was a plethora of people to choose from. When we go back in history, we see a lot more Black entertainers being given the forefront of the stage, even if it's for a short time in films in the 1920s and 30s, because that talent was the talent that people went to see live. People didn't really go to travel and see white folks live all that much in the 20s and 30s. They went to speakeasies, they went to juke joints, and they came to see big, huge shows with people like Mahalia Jackson and, all the big performers, Billie Holiday, all of the big performers. They were us. Paul Robeson was loved in Europe. He was adored in Europe, and that's why he lived there. So I think that for us as performers, this generation or this age of performers is going to see for the first time what it's really like to be an appreciated live performer.
Yeah. And
Because people appreciate what they miss.
right. Exactly.
It's been a struggle for a lot of years for Broadway Cares and Equity Fights AIDS, but that one broadcast on MSNBC earlier in December, One Night of Broadway, I think tapped every performer in this country into remembering how it feels and how important we are to the evolution of culture in this country.
Kate, let me ask you, because kind of at point, there's been some amazing examples, finally, of anti-racist and race-transcendent casting. And it's been exciting to see that it's finally happening. It's slowly happening, and a lot more needs to be done. You mentioned already Broadway, making its point with other, with different live shows, that we need this. We need this connection right now. And with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the fight for racial justice right now. What do you see us being able to do to help our Black performers, our Indigenous performers, our POC performers, giving them a platform and an equitable platform to continue to showcase their art?
What a great question. First and foremost, I want you to remember that live performers, and I'm going to go even further than that and just say performers in general, okay, have never been the problem. Producers, genuine producers, real art producers have never been the problem. Directors have never been the problem. The problem with racism in entertainment is the same problem with racism across the board. It is a corporate mechanism. It is a mechanism for profit and profit alone. And that has been the problem, really, not just for performers, but everything we're dealing with right now. The divisions between us politically, the economic inequality that has gone on, all of this is because corporations have been allowed to move away from what the purpose of a corporation is within this culture and within North America, and for that matter, Western society. Businesses do not open to be profitable. Profit is a byproduct of why businesses become businesses. Businesses develop to fill a need, to solve a problem, to stop a gap. Profit is the byproduct of that company being successful at what they do. We've left that so very long ago that now to open a company is to make money. You open a company to make money, never mind about solving a problem, stopping a gap, filling a need. So performance art, the development of our culture. Hang on just a second. Sorry, somebody's calling me. The development of our culture has everything to do with us recognizing our profitability. And when I say our profitability, I'm not talking about how much money we make as artists, how much money we can garner as artists. I'm talking about the profitability of us existing in a safe and secure and rooted place within the culture because it strikes a balance. Corporations should be sponsoring artists and artist companies because their purpose is to fill a need, to stop a gap, to solve a problem.
Mhm.
We are the mirrored reflection of what is going on in our culture, whether we're singers or dancers or actors or spoken word artists. So the racism that is in entertainment, in my opinion, is relatively new, because the theater union would not exist but for the ostracization of Blacks and Jews. How many of us can go back to our first theater history class and learn about how equity was formed?
Mhm.
Equity was formed by two actors who had enough talent to garner their success and profit financially, and then they reinvested in their industry. A white woman and a white man, but they could not have done it without the Jewish theater community, and the Jewish theater community, with just this much white privilege, brought Black people into the fold. And Black people and Jews are how this industry has survived in modern history.
Right.
So, really and truly, the racism in entertainment is what we as entertainers have allowed.
Right.
End of sentence.
And of what we've allowed. I really appreciate that last.
We have allowed that because we are the creators and the purveyors of how this industry has survived. The racially ostracized, the religiously ostracized are the people that created this. And if you want to go back to the beginning of performance art, the Greeks are the same people who also invented the Olympics and homosexuality. Right? They also invented performance art. They're all one and the same. What they are is what the people in power who need profits without solving a problem create as a problem. We are the misfits, but we are not the misfits. We are the glue, and the corporations are what have made us misfits. We are the foundation. We are the glue. We are the information. We are the face in the mirror. Only what we allow will continue.
Right. Now,
Same as the casting couch. Racism in entertainment is no different than sexism in entertainment. If you will fuck your way into a part, then that part of the business will exist. If it takes 30 women 25 years to call out Harvey Weinstein, then it will take 30 years for the casting couch to get tossed in the dumpster.
Heard that.
That's my answer to racism in entertainment. Do not tolerate it. Do not tolerate it. Do not tolerate it. Privilege is not something you are given. It is something you assume.
I love that. And I want to piggyback off of that. And guys, I know we have some other prepared questions, but I saw a really great question from one of our audience members that I think is really pertinent to this. Because you mentioned a plague earlier. And the last time we did this, with the plague-wise in 1918, we saw a renaissance after that in the Roaring 20s. And maybe the most familiar people are with the Renaissance, right, is the one that we had just after the Middle Ages, where we saw different rich individuals patronizing, becoming patrons of artists. But Victor Jones...
We had just come out of a plague then, too. The Black Plague had ravaged Europe.
Ooh,
oh my God, so many deaths. The Black Death, the Yellow Fever, all of those.
Absolutely.
So many. It was a big old spectrum of contagion.
Yes.
And
love it's the back half. Remember me talking with you guys last time about this plague being an evolutionary moment, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, so everything in the world has its equal and its opposite, correct? Otherwise, we can't strike balance. Okay, so the plague is only one part of that. The Renaissance is the other part of that. You have to have a balance. when we have cut a swath through our culture, through our society, through our population in an evolutionary way, we are eliminating the people that are simply not able or not willing to go forward, right? That means there has to be a resurgence of the people that are not only willing to go forward, but the innovators willing to light the way.
Amen.
That's what performers are.
With that, I love that point, because you need the patron, you need the audience. But Victor's got a great question for us. Victor Jones. Hey, Victor. I see you in the comments. And he asked, doesn't companies sponsoring theater groups constrict what theater groups can say? And I think that is such, and I see somebody commented underneath that it's a tightrope to walk. That is a tricky line. But I think that, something we were talking about earlier was that we are going to see such an enthusiasm, I think, in general for the arts, that some of that restriction that we're maybe all used to over the last few years may be loosened. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, I love that question. I love that question. Because first I'm going to pick apart your question before I answer it.
Please do.
So you said we need patrons. We need the patron. We need the patron. It's like Beetlejuice, right? You say it 3 times, it's going to appear. We need the patron, but then the patron can restrict what we say. That's not a patron. That's a master. I'm going to tell you something that Ed Asner told me. He said the most powerful word in Hollywood, do you know what it is? I looked around and I said, I don't know. I don't know what the most powerful word in Hollywood is. And he said, it's no. I looked around some more and I said, what's no? He said, it's the most powerful word in Hollywood. Nobody ever said we can't say no.
Mm-hmm.
Remember me talking before about us being mired in earthly things and then admiring the earthly wealth of things and then guiding ourselves to that because we want that sort of wealth in order to do what we're doing. That right there is the problem. Do you need the patron, or do you need to say what you need to say? Because sometimes no is the most powerful word there is. We need the patron? We would like the patron with that much money. The patron we need is the patron that trusts us with their money. Just because Walmart is willing to give you the money doesn't mean you need Walmart's money if Walmart wants to put Walmart's knee on your neck.
Right.
You can say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have to get out of the idea as performers that starvation is the only alternative to not taking what's offered. We are not beggars. We are the purveyors of vital, valuable, necessary information. Take people's Amazon Prime away during lockdown. Take people's Disney Plus away while they're homeschooling their children. And then tell them, no, I don't want your $15.99 a month. Because your $15.99 a month means I have to talk about stuff that is politically correct. That I have to put a white girl in this part so that you and your white friends will watch it. People are going to last that long without their escape because life is a series of tragic events. You can drink yourself into stupidity, but you know it's going to kill you. You can dope up yourself into idiocy, but you know it's going to kill you. or you can escape into scandal with Kerry Washington once a week and be okay. Right? That's the power of no. That is the power of no. You don't need the patron. The audience needs you. So you start talking to your patrons the same way you tell your girlfriends to talk to their boyfriend. Bitch, you better know your worth. Otherwise, he's going to take you for everything and leave you naked and alone.
So speaking
no is
of,
a very powerful word. Don't be afraid to say no. Get 15 smaller patrons and go ahead and tell Walmart to kick rocks, because Walmart can't keep Walmart's mouth shut, and Walmart has an agenda and it's not yours. So find 15 smaller patrons, find 15 local patrons, find 15 patrons of color. Have them put in a little bit less money so that their risk-averse issue is not triggered, but involve them. Involve their business. You want to use so-and-so's beauty supply down the street because she's competing with 15 Chinese immigrants on the avenue of fashion, then you product place her shit in your play. You give her a full-page ad. You lift her up somehow, and then only take $100 of her money. You build a relationship and a rapport with her. You understand that she's as much in your community as you are in hers. You're not begging for help. You're offering to link arms. When I was the president of the PTA, part of the shit I used to get from people is, well, why aren't we selling wrapping paper? Why aren't we selling cookie dough? You know, when we do the Little Caesars thing, we can make a whole bunch of money. Here's the problem. Soon as we do all that, our kids are knocking on doors in the same year that we've had how many mass fucking shootings. I don't feel like driving my kid around everywhere. I don't feel like hitting up grandma on a fixed income for some fucking Christmas paper when the Dollar Tree exists. But what I know is that parents will spend money on their kids because sometimes it's the only thing they can do. Parents will spend time with their kids if that's all they want. So you don't have to keep selling Christmas paper and cookie dough. You can go rent a bounce house, buy 2 cornhole games and a water slide and call it a hootenanny, and every parent will buy tickets and a 50-50 raffle and show up and buy a t-shirt because their kid's school is doing it and their kid wants to hang out with them for a Saturday afternoon. And you've just raised $65,000 and you don't have to give shit to Frankenmuth fundraising. You don't have to beg for what you need. Sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just smooth out the road in front of it.
I like that.
You don't have to have a diamond ring, but what a thrill to get that little blue box from Tiffany's. Right? If it's got a mood ring in it, you don't care, because the first thrill was, oh my God, this is a Tiffany's box.
Tiffany's.
Right? That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do is make it a little bit of an escape. There is somebody that wants to escape to you. Where you put in the hard work is not schmoozing people that are going to tell you what to do. It's finding 100 other people locally that believe in you.
Yes.
Partner with them.
Those people
Don't
who
be
believe
a beggar. Be a chooser.
Right. So those people who believe in you, that audience, right? Something that we talked about before that I really want to touch on today is the idea of, and the whole title of today is that final character, right? The audience is that final character that creates that whole other aesthetic, that whole other vibe going on. Because those of us who are actors totally understand, you know, it doesn't matter if you're virtual or not. If there's a live performance involved, that audience gives you another sense of energy. So the question that we have is how do we go about in this post-plague world, and even in this in-between time, in this limbo that we're in, where it's still virtual, we're not really post-plague yet, but we're getting a little bit better, and maybe we might be able to see some hybrid stuff, but we still have a lot of virtual live performances. How do we tackle that final character? How do we add them? What do we do? What are some ways we can make this work?
Another excellent question. Okay, so one of the things that happens when you become an adult is you kind of lose your play. You lose your ability to pretend a little bit, right? Actors, less so, because it really gets us wet to play dress up and be somebody else, right? Everybody doesn't get all excited about that, but we do. But we still, once we're grown-ups in this business, now we've married ourselves to the idea of shackles, right? I love people. I'm being facetious. I'm being a little facetious when I say this. I love it when people want to take a classical piece of theater and then throw it into a black box with a couple of matte black painted apple boxes and convince themselves that they're doing a full 5-act production of Shakespeare, right? Or what have you, some period piece. They're doing the Cherry Orchard in a black box space, right? With nothing. They're relying on all of their talent and the visceral nature of Ibsen. And let's just get into the meat of this text. And okay, stop. What that is a handful of actors masturbating and charging ticket prices for it. I don't know another nice way to describe that. That's the nicest way I can describe that. Okay? First of all, it was written the way it was written for a reason. And if you don't have the writer sitting right there next to you telling you it's okay to bastardize the shit out of something, then understand that whatever you've decided to interpret this piece of work as is you. That's all you. It's not this piece. Okay? What that's for is to draw people in. What the black box is for, what 2 apple boxes on a street corner with a guitar and a banjo is for, what literally breaking out in the cereal aisle in song in the middle of a shopping day is for, is to get your audience. When you grew up, you decided that running around the house in your underwear, whether people were there or not, was not a good idea. When you were 2, you didn't give a shit. If it was no pants time, it was no pants time when you were 2. The world be damned, right? So that same little person in you that loves to play dress up and be somebody else has to divorce yourself from the idea that if you want to add that final character, it needs to be a full-scale production. It needs to have production quality. It needs to be a performance with a playbill and sponsors and ads and a venue and professional actors and lots of rehearsal. Are you fucking kidding me? You need to have a handful of business cards, maybe some postcard size flyers of what you're doing. One of those cool little, from McDonald's Happy Meals karaoke fake microphones that does the little echo thing. And wherever the hell you are, if there are enough people around and you are so inspired, break out into something. Because somebody is going to be brave enough to come up and compliment you. Somebody else is going to be brave enough to ask you what the fuck you are doing. That's your opportunity to collect your audience. Give them information. If you are riding a bus downtown and you can just feel it, it's Thursday afternoon and it's 5:30 and everybody on the bus is unhappy, it's okay to break out in song and do that performance. Keep your mask on. You don't have to run up and down the bus. And when you're done, be like, I'm sorry, I'm just tired of being locked up in this fucking plague, and I thought I'd share a little bit of my joy. By the way, I'm a performer. I work in the shadow of Ibis, and if you ever want to come see us, or you ever get on the internet, we're at such and such and Facebook. Sorry, thanks for letting me vent. I guarantee you, before you get off the bus, 6 people are going to log into that Facebook page. Stop being married to the way you've always done things. What did you say? That's the way it's always been when you were talking about racist casting? No, that's not the way it's always been. That's the way it's been since we took a back seat and let corporations run art. That's like letting government run medicine. They can be the paymaster. I have no problem with the government paying all of the doctors. One source, one paymaster. But the government doesn't get to tell doctors how to be doctors. I have no problem with Walmart paying your actors. But Walmart doesn't get to tell you how to produce, what to produce, what to say. And if Walmart has a problem with that, there are 15 people who own beauty supply stores and sandwich shops and a franchise of Starbucks that for free advertising in a program will be more than happy to maybe just provide the coffee. Maybe they don't have any money. Maybe they'll just provide the coffee and the day-old pastries. And they get to write that off on their taxes. Actors don't give a fuck. Actors need free food, period. They don't care if it's a day old. It doesn't always have to be a straight line. And it doesn't always have to be the traditional way. You don't have to have a whole show to get audience. Sometimes you just have to have balls enough to start singing something from Cabaret in the middle of the cereal aisle. Sometimes you just have to see a kid in his mom's cart and do something you know from a children's play. Entertain her kid from a safe distance for 5 minutes, and she wants to know who the fuck you are, and are there things that she can bring her kid to come see you do? Because people will spend money on their kids.
Oh, yeah.
They will go broke spending money on their kids. You want to get an audience? You do something for their kids. Watch them throw their money at you. You do something that caters to old people, and they love to reminisce about when they used to go to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
You can collect yourself a whole gaggle of blue-haired season ticket holders that will be there on Sunday afternoons. All you have to do is show up at the ladies' auxiliary and give them a free performance one afternoon while they're having a luncheon.
Absolutely. And it's that personal connection, that feeling.
Yes,
of
because going forward,
immediacy.
we're building relationships. We're not building production companies. Production companies come together when the collective does their job.
I agree. But that's also one of the wonders of, in-person theater and theater in general. Now, normally, one of the questions that we always ask people has been what made you fall in love with horror? But I think actually, for this episode, there's a slightly different one, which is for you, what was that moment that made you fall in love with theater? Like,
Yes.
what was that light, that road to Damascus moment almost,
Yeah.
where, the masks appear and you're like, this is what I want to do?
Yes. Yes. When did that happen for me?
Yes.
The very, very first time I read my line and I didn't feel anything, but I felt them get it.
Nice.
When you're having that performance and you're in the zone and your timing is perfect and you know how to gauge that laugh and you know the laugh that's coming and you know the cue that you got to pick up and you're just in the zone all night long. That wasn't when it happened for me. It happened for me on one of those nights when I had nobody in the audience. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't know whether or not I was clicking because it was still the first act. There was no house management to come back in the dressing room and tell me. There was nothing. I wasn't feeling it. And I read that line, and I'm a very technical actor, so I can duplicate performances. It's one of my superpowers. It's also one of the crutches that I use when I'm like phoning it in, right? So I have to be careful. But it was one of those nights where I was trying too hard because I wasn't hitting the mark. Turns out it had nothing to do with me hitting the mark. It had to do with me being in the zone. And I was in the zone to the point where I didn't feel it. But I felt the audience get it. They got it. And it gave me that same rush on the nights that I knew I was in the zone. And I went, oh, okay. I do know how to do this. And if I need to, I can phone this in. That's because this isn't about anything I'm doing. This is about what I am. And I am where I'm supposed to be. Because they get it. They're here, even though I'm not. I'm balancing my checkbook trying to figure out what the fuck I'm not doing right tonight. It doesn't matter. They're here. They're in the moment. They're on the edge of their seats. They get it. I'm technically going through the motions, but I'm connecting because I've done the work. That was when I knew. And I'm not going to lie to you. I think I was 13. Nice. So like I was in the throes of puberty on top of it, right?
Right.
I knew.
I was 11, so yes, I totally get that feeling from that point, yeah.
I absolutely knew that moment because I knew that I wasn't there. But I knew that whatever source had given me already did the work. I realized that I loved theater when I was being hateful and it loved me back anyway. Is that a good way to describe that?
Yes.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well, yeah.
There's something special about live performance, right? I think we can all say that we've fallen in love with live performance for our own personal reasons, whatever they may be. But one thing for me that I think is kind of universal is the idea that live performance unifies. Regardless of who you are, where you're from, what's bringing you to this theater tonight, where you saw the ad, what you're going to do when you leave, it doesn't matter. For this 10 minutes, 20 minutes, hour and a half plus an intermission, however long you're there watching this live performance, you and the 2 people, the 5 people, the 10 people in the audience, and the 3 people, the 5 people, the 10 people on stage, you're all there for one reason. And it is to experience and to be a part of this art together. And for the rest of your life, you will forever have a connection to those people that is unique to that time and that moment, unique to anyone else's experience, whether that show runs once or in syndication for 50 years with 40 different casts. Every individual moment, every individual show is unique to the people who were there at that moment, at that time, and they are unified uniquely in that way forever. And I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, again, theater and live performance is a mirrored reflection of how we are as humans with one another. And sometimes without one another. Right? Like how much of live theater has truly in depth explored aloneness in a way that no other venue ever has for people. I mean, I can think of a dozen shows right off the top of my head that like take you around the world in aloneness, in loneliness, in the difference between being alone and being lonely. And the thousands and thousands of words of dialogue that have surrounded just that idea, right? And here we've been alone together for what, 11 months now? And how much resource information is there on that alone just for us to go to? Like, not even new information, right? Just the information we can already go to the library, the play service, and what kinds of aloneness. Like Willie Loman's aloneness is very, very different than Lysistrata's aloneness.
Right.
But both of those things can happen simultaneously, right? They can both happen in different timelines, in different circumstances, and the emotive gift is exactly the same, right? It's reaching out. It's reaching out across the darkness, across the abyss. And there's nothing ever that has to prevent that from happening other than all of the accoutrements. I don't know if you remember me telling you before how much I really kind of loathe method acting, right? Like it's
Cheating.
it's kind of like cheating. And I'm careful when I talk to actors about this because I never know who's a method actor and like who really,
Right.
really respects the process and all this other kind of stuff. And like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes because I'm no guru. But my feeling about method acting is, well, gee, I mean, anybody can put on a toga, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many frat parties I attended in college where anybody had a toga on, and that made it a toga party, but that didn't make it a Greek tragedy, right? Like, what made it a Greek tragedy was not only my ability to be able to be in that role, but to also understand first century politics and first century culture and first century man-woman dynamics and the power structure and the economic structure and the theological structure. And none of those things can I paint on my face. None of those things can I wrap around my neck and all of a sudden become. So I've developed a little bit of disrespect for the method actor that stops short at the externals, right? And I feel like it's kind of the shortcut. It's like cutting corners. It's the difference between putting Tyvek up and putting cardboard up while you're building your house. I mean, cardboard is going to insulate you, but not the same way Tyvek will. It's not going to sustain you. It's not sustainable. So when so-and-so forgets her cue, or that prop wasn't on the prop table where it was supposed to be when that method actor leaps off stage to go grab it and come back, what the fuck is he going to do without his prop? He's not built for that, right? Like, he hasn't prepared for that. Whereas the actor, when they go off stage and that prop is not there, the actor is going to grab something, twist it up, make it look that way, or cheat to the audience so they cannot see it and move on with the scene, because the most important part of that scene is not that actor's external or the prop. It is moving that scene forward, maintaining momentum so that you can't drive a semi-truck through those cues. You got to be able to think on your feet, which means you have to immerse yourself in that. So if that's the case, then maybe the idea of us needing to be all of those things that make a performance aren't really necessary. Maybe you just need to be able to look somebody in the eye and connect. And if that's the case, if we're going to connect like that, then there has to be a certain amount of integrity. There has to be a certain amount of vulnerability. And when you're working in venues or genres like horror, when you put horror and vulnerability together, you've got quite a spicy quesadilla there. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of playground there. There's a lot of nuance. When you've got something to sink your teeth into, when you've got subtext, when you've got backstory, when you've done your work, it matters little whether or not Tevye has his sash or he's actually up on a roof. Now he can be in a black box on an apple box. If I were a rich man, you can feel it. You can feel the color. You can feel the richness. You can hear it in the baritone, and he takes you right there to our little town of Anatevka because it is home, right?
Right.
You have to be home. You can't be a turtle. A turtle carries his house on his back. You can't carry your whole house on your back. You have to leave all of the unnecessary things in order to travel light. So it's perfectly okay to be that method actor, to stand in the gap, to shortcut when you can't be there. That's great. You can rely on your props. You can rely on your costume when there's not the authenticity, because we all have that Saturday afternoon extra added performance where we're just not in it. You know, we have that pickup rehearsal for the lines that we keep missing, and that pickup rehearsal isn't the same as that moment. So that's what that method is for.
Right.
But to rely on everything that's tried and true, the playbill, the flyer, depending on an audience, sometimes you need to be willing to perform without an audience. One of the struggles I had as a theater owner was from time to time, there were more people on stage than there were in the audience. And I had to make the decision, the executive decision, is it worth it for me to turn the lights on? Because it costs more to run this show than I'm going to make tonight.
Right.
And sometimes I would go back because there were 4 people in the audience and there were 12 people in the cast. And there were 7 ellipsoidals, and that's a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
You know? So I would go back and I would take a survey. Sometimes I wouldn't even ask the actors, I would just stand in the dressing room and catch the vibe. Other times I would flat out ask, so there's 4 people in the audience and it's going to cost me more to turn the lights on than it's worth. I'm here to take everybody's temperature. And if the temperature was, damn, I was on tonight, I was ready for tonight, or, well, I could use a pickup rehearsal because I keep fucking up that one stunt that I have to do, and I'm not, I could use the practice. If that's the vibe, fuck it. Let's turn on the lights and do this. Because these 4 people showed up.
Yes.
I'm going to go talk to them, and then we're going to do this like 500 people are out there. Okay? Or the vibe would be, oh my God. Then it's like, okay, so we're not going to do this tonight, and I'm going to give rain checks. These people are going to get in free next time because they came out tonight. But if they want to talk back, would you be willing to come out and talk? People don't like to leave home without a good reason.
Right.
You can still give them something, right? Ask an actor anything you wanted to ask them. We've got 30 minutes of talk back, what have you. Give them something. But I would take the temperature because they're still the final character, even if we didn't get to perform, even if the wind was so bad that the actors couldn't be heard, I mean, I would drop a boom mic, or I'd ask actors to talk really loud, or what have you. Ask the audience, would you like a rain check? There's just as much fluidity in what we do as what we think about wanting to do. You have to treat what you do the same way you treat your wish list. Because if you don't treat what you do the way you treat your wish list, you're never going to accomplish everything on your wish list because you've already limited your capability. You have to accept that magic is real and that the universe is infinitely abundant and things will always work out for you. But you have to treat every bit of it just like you treat your wish list, because it's all possible. That's exactly what we as theater people do. We literally bring three-dimensional human beings into existence out of thin air. We are creators. We must start looking at ourselves, thinking about ourselves, and talking to ourselves as creators. And we have to be very vigilant about crossing that line into being egoists.
Right. Yeah.
You can know that you're great, but let your audience tell you. Let your audience tell you. Because somebody that comes back to a performance is proof that you're great. Somebody that brings their friends to buy a ticket is proof that you're great. Somebody that tells somebody else about you is proof that you're great. So all you have to do is be out there. Every moment is a teaching moment. Every moment is a marketing moment. Every moment is a performance moment. Don't feel like you need externals. Feel like you need to break out, because I guarantee you all the people around you that are too afraid to stand up and give a speech are feeling exactly like you, and they would love to have a voice. That's why they watch television. It's why they have favorite shows. Those are people they relate to or people they can escape to.
Right.
Be the change you want to see. If you want to be able to perform and not worry about a performance venue to have, then start performing everywhere you go. You've been a misfit your whole life. What are you so fucking embarrassed about now? Right? Why are you waiting for the appropriate circumstances now? 2020 has happened. There is no more an appropriate time or place to come together. What we are doing is healing people. Because you can feel your feelings, but be one of those people that doesn't have a love language, so you can't articulate your feelings. But that doesn't mean that you can't sit there with your mouth open just like a mouth breather and watch somebody else explain you to yourself.
Right.
And feel better.
Whew.
I can't tell you how many suicides that's prevented. I can't tell you how many college careers that's launched. I cannot tell you how many women have become brave enough to leave an abusive relationship. I cannot tell you how many closeted men have been brave enough to come out because somebody left their vulnerability on the table.
Yeah.
You have to be the change you want to see and stop worrying about what's not there. Because if it's not there, then it must be your job to create it. Right?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And we all went through so much shadow work in 2020.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You know, we're all oddballs and misfits who've been figuring out how to make this work, or, you know, making wobbly stacks of books to still do some monologue or karaoke, just so you can put your computer on it and still connect with people. We find ways to do this.
Right. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but I'd like you to point out any epic change in history that was created by somebody that was part of the crowd. Somebody that was regular.
Exactly. I mean,
somebody that was common.
Well, I won't say all you have to do, but the world was never changed by people who didn't believe it could be. So
the world was never changed by people who believed what they were told.
Right. Exactly. So like you
people
said,
tell you can't do something because they can't do it. People treat you the way they feel about themselves. They don't treat you the way they feel about you. They treat you the way they feel about themselves. So every time you think of doing a performance, but you don't have all of the right things in order and you stop yourself, that's you mistreating you based on the way you think about you.
Exactly.
Because in your shower, you don't need to be fully made up to sing your fucking heart out. You need to be inspired.
Yep.
Right. So you need to understand that on those not so glamorous days, those are the days that you need to be a performer more than any other day. I grew up Baptist, and one of the sayings we have in the Baptist church is, in my weakness, his strength is proven. How strong you are is not when you have it together.
Right.
How strong you are is when you are exposed and vulnerable. You want to know what you can do with this theater company? Do it empty-handed. Do it bare naked. Do it in the street. You know what theater of cruelty is, right?
Yep.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with standing near a bus stop on a nice day for 10, 15 minutes. And when two people show up at the bus stop, there's nothing wrong with going into a scene from Waiting for Godot. What happens at a bus stop? Absolutely nothing. What happens in Waiting for Godot? Nothing. Happens twice. Right?
Yep.
Nothing happens twice in Waiting for Godot. What a great moment to transport these two people living in the most banal of circumstances. They have to ride the bus.
Mm.
Right? So you go to downtown Ferndale and pick a fucking corner and just start singing and dancing in the snow with each other. You don't think that's going to gather a crowd?
100%.
Bring somebody with you to pass out flyers.
Yeah.
This is a safe way to socially distance and perform for you right now. You don't need to come to a theater and buy a ticket and sit down. I'm coming to you in the plaza on Ferndale's main drag, and you can stand at a distance and wear your mask, and I'm going to perform for you. Because you've lived through this just like I have. You deserve to see this as much as I deserve to do this right now. And going forward, if you like it, throw some money my way. There's lots more free shit where this came from.
Yes. Ooh. And on that note, lots more free shit where that came from. I want to say it is 7:13, so we have gone over because this was that good of a Beyond the Ghostlight. Hey, thank you.
Because I talk too much.
No, it's been beautiful. It's been wonderful. It's been inspirational. It's been everything that we wanted out of our very first 2021 Ghostlight. So thank you so much for joining us. We cannot wait to see more from you and to talk to you more because trust me, y'all out there, you will be hearing more from her and from us.
My pleasure. I'm always happy to.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Those of you out there, I see Sailor Taurus out there from YouTube. Thank you for seeing us. I don't know if you were watching on YouTube or on our website. So, that could be a new little guy. So thank you so much for joining us. Robert Young, thank you for joining us. As always, Bridget Gappa, thank you for joining us. Victor Jones, you had some really good questions tonight. We're so glad that we could hit those questions. And for those of you who I cannot see who have joined us tonight, we really appreciate you being the final character and joining us at the beginning of this 2021 journey. I can't wait to see what happens next. Guys, do you have anything you want to say to the audience?
I just want to say thank you.
We're just looking forward to bringing more theatre.
Beautiful. Wonderful. And so this is the Creative Coven signing off. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time on Beyond the Ghostlight.
Bye now.
Beyond the Ghostlight.